Welcome everybody to TruExact Show. I'm here, Eric, Brian, Ellie, and our special guest, the very funny, hilarious Candice Thompson. How are you doing?
I'm good. Excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
All right, so before we start and get into your career and stuff, I have to say I did message you on Instagram, but I spelled your name wrong, okay? So when you see a message from me, just completely ignore it. But the worst part is, it was like a guy getting a girl's number and then texting her again. I messaged you right back and explained how I spelled your name wrong. I was just like, what am I doing here? So my wife goes, what are you doing? You just ruined everything. So luckily, in the cesspool of Twitter, which is the worst place on earth, that's how...
And the best.
And the best, I guess you use that. That's how we ended up getting in touch, messaging each other. So Twitter's not completely useless, folks. It's actually good.
It is. Yeah, no, I didn't see the Instagram. I'm so bad with checking any. I hate all social media. I hate all of it. I loathe the fact that I have to be on any of it because I'm a comedian. I mean, my goal is to move into the woods. That is my
Hell
goal.
yeah.
Yeah, so, yeah, sorry if I didn't see that, but yes.
You know what, if you would have saw it before we got in contact, you might have never even messaged me back. So, fine here.
You just ratted yourself out for no reason.
Yeah, well, now I'm going to go look for it.
Well, because we're going
to
tag you in a story. And like a post eventually, like when this comes out, and you're gonna be like, "This fucking weirdo spelled my name wrong." So
everyone spells my name wrong. In my email, I have my name, and people will email me and still spell my name wrong.
Right.
And so I don't even get mad at it anymore. I'm just like, I know the ACE is the more popular spelling of my name. So if that's what and I'm also not a person that's that petty and insecure that I get mad when people misspell my name.
Right, and also it's autocorrect, so it wasn't my fault. So,
sure.
Yeah.
It's Candace Owens, probably. She's more popular than me, so it just defaults to that.
It might have did that, actually.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get into the show here. Sorry for the viewers for that little spiel, but it had to be said. So, Candace, if you want to get into your comedy career, where you're from, your upbringing, how you started, and stuff like that, and then we could go from there. So take it away.
Yeah. I'm originally from Queens, New York. That's where I spent the first decade of my life. And then Cincinnati, Ohio, we moved there when I was like 10, almost 10 years old. My dad, everyone's like, why did you move from New York to Cincinnati? I'm like, I was a child. I didn't have any say. I didn't know I could vote. So yeah, my dad's job got transferred, so we moved to Cincinnati, and that's where I spent most of my, all of my, teenage years, and then I went to college there. I went to Miami University of Oxford, Ohio. Shout out to Ben Roethlisberger. No, I don't want to shout him out at all. And then, I knew probably my fourth year of college, right before I graduated, I was like, I don't think I want to pursue what I've spent these past 4 years pursuing, which was I have a degree, a bachelor's of science in dietetics and health and nutrition. And so I was like, you know what, I'm too goofy to work in a hospital, which is what I would have to be doing to get my, to internship for a year before I could take my exam to be a full-on practicing dietitian. And so I was like, no, I'm too silly. I would be that person that's making fun of somebody who's getting their leg amputated from diabetes. So I was like, no, I'm inappropriate. I'm inappropriate and insubordinate all the time. And so the one thing I knew that I was always good at was just making people laugh and being funny. Since I was a kid, I've been making people laugh just unintentionally, and just I was like, maybe I should just try that. Not stand up, but I wanted to get into television writing and sitcoms. And so I was like, I'm funny. And I knew that I wanted to act too. So I was like, I can try that. And so I went to my parents and I was like, would you guys hate me if I told you that the money you spent on getting my education for the past 4 years, I just want to kind of throw that out the window? And they were like, they're super supportive, which is great, but also awful because, like, you know, every success story of celebrities, because they had awful parents, like they beat the shit out of them. They told them they weren't going to amount to anything. I'm the complete opposite. Like, I could have told my parents anything and they would have been, oh, we support you 100%. And I'm like, if you guys had hit me a little bit more, I probably would have had 7 sitcoms by now. But they're just very supportive and loving. And so they were like, yeah, we will support you in anything that you do. And so I saved up my money and moved from Cincinnati to LA, not knowing anyone, and was just like, I'm just going to take a stab at this on a wing and a prayer. And I just kind of, again, didn't know I'd be doing stand-up. I wanted to just get into acting and writing. And then I met somebody who was a friend of a friend from back in Cincinnati who was in stand-up comedy in Baltimore, who was moving out to LA. So my friend connected us and we started hanging out, and he was like, you're hilarious. You should actually do some open mics with me. And so we started going around hitting rooms in LA, like little coffee shops with like 2 people in it, telling jokes, doing my like terrible Aaron Neville impression is how I started. And
Neville.
I got into a sketch group kind of quickly with the Laugh Factory with like Kevin Hart. The first people I met like in comedy were like Kevin Hart, Tiffany Haddish. These were the people that were in my circles. And so we started doing sketch comedy at the Laugh Factory, this group called the Comedy Playground, which is kind of like a mix of sketch and improv. And from there, that's just how I started meeting more people in stand-up. And then I started performing more, and it just yada, yada, yada. Here we are.
Let me ask this real quick. Was the person from Baltimore Ryan Sickler?
No. Is he from Baltimore?
Yeah.
I did not, why do I think he's from the South? Why does he talk like that?
Brian, you better Google that. You better Google that, Brian.
A hard, like, Maryland accent.
Is he?
Yeah.
For me, it sounds kind of, I'm hearing his voice right now in my head, and it's even still sounding Southern to me. Maybe I just don't know my dialects. But no, the friend that I knew from Baltimore, his name is DeJuan Owens, and he was like, back in the day, used to be on the road and open for Bill Burr. And so, yeah, he moved out here. He actually quit comedy, and now he just focuses on acting. And he's like pretty successful at that right now. So, but yeah, he's the reason why I got into stand-up.
Wow. 2 things I just want to ask. Are you still paying your student loan debts?
I have no student. Luckily for me, I had parents who took care of that for me, but also I had scholarships too. I had like a minority scholarship and an academic scholarship. So I didn't have to. My parents were all like took care of that for me. Thank God.
Okay, I just want to know because I know people still paying for a very long time here. Also, too, you mentioned that when you got on stage, it was only 2 to 3 people. Like, was it a lot hard? Oh, no, sorry. I wanted to ask, can you do your Aaron Neville impression or no?
I thought you'd never ask. Let me do the spin. Yeah. I don't know much, but I know I love you. And that may be all I need to know.
Phenomenal. How did you know you could do that impression? And was there anyone else you could do? And how did that go over with the crowd? Sorry to ask in a row, but...
Right, there was 2 or 3 people there. So, I mean, it didn't get any laughs, but I also knew that if it was literally my first time doing stand-up, and I did that impression, and I somehow wove it into a joke, into a premise, and I don't remember exactly how I set it up, but it didn't get a response. But I also knew that I was like, hey, that didn't like destroy me, like not getting a response and performing on stage. And I've always like performed. Like I was a dancer when I grew up. I played sports, and so I was comfortable in front of people doing what I had to do, but it didn't crush me that they didn't respond. So I was like, oh, maybe I have it in me to keep doing this. And did.
Cool. Brian, I want to pass to you because you do some comedy. So if you have any questions, go for it.
Not on her level, though.
You got to start somewhere. You got to start.
Like, I don't get paid for it.
No, right before everything happened with COVID, I started getting paid spots at a couple places in New York. So it was like kind of going, and I was so happy about it. And then it was like COVID, no more shows.
Yeah.
So everything that I had planned, I had shows like in April and May, and like going back to the city, and it all just gone.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, all of us are going to be starting over with comedy when all of this is over. It's going to be like we're all open micers again because nobody remembers how to do stand-up. I don't remember any of my jokes. It's awful.
Well, the first time you got up, like, were you very nervous to go do it?
I wasn't. And I don't know what it is. I used to be a really shy kid. I used to be like so shy as a kid that like my sister would be like, hey, go, if we need to know what time a movie started back in the day. She'd be like, go ask the lady in the booth. And I'd be like, no, I'm not going to, no, I can't talk to her. I can't, no. So like, that's how shy, and I don't know when I overcame that, but even from then, I wouldn't say I was nervous. It was just like, okay, this is either going to go really bad or really good. And what's the worst that could possibly happen is I'll embarrass myself for 5 minutes in front of people that are never going to see me again. So, but even to this day, my nerves don't really bother me unless it's kind of like a late night taping or something like that, where I know this is going to live online for the rest of my life. I'll get a little bit of like nerves, but I meditate a lot and for like anxiety and deep breathing, and I just know that, it's going to be fine.
Mm-hmm. Before you first went on,
No, I was just going to say, I do a thing like anytime if I have a spot somewhere, before I go up, like literally as the MC will be saying my name, I like kind of put my head down and I say, nothing matters. And then I just go up and say whatever the fuck I'm going to say.
Yep, that's like a mantra everyone should live by. Like, legit, none of this matters.
It's hot mic'd, and that's the first thing they hear. Nothing matters.
Nothing matters.
It's not funny.
I can't wait to rob a bank with Brian, and that's the fucking thing he just turns into.
Nothing matters. When you first were about to go on stage for the first time, did you go into it thinking, I want to do comedy for a living, or was it more like, let me just give it a shot, and if I, like you said, like if I suck, I suck, but like, was that your goal and you just wanted to see how you did?
No, it wasn't my goal. I had no goals to do stand-up comedy at all. Like I loved stand-up comedy, and which is so interesting to me because I love, even as a kid, I remember watching like the Tonight Show as a kid with my parents and like memorizing the stand-up comic late night sets, memorizing what they said and then performing it back. And I remember my mom like not laughing at all when the comic was doing it. And then when I do it, Candice, you're hilarious. But we're also talking about the woman who thinks I sing better than Whitney Houston. So her gauge is a little bit, right. So I always loved comedy. I had no idea I'd be doing stand-up. And then, but Chappelle, like I remember watching Chappelle's first, Killing Him Softly, when that came out. And I just remember I think that was definitely a pivotal moment for me. Not when I knew that I wanted to do stand-up at all, because I hadn't even moved out to LA yet, but there was something about that was like, I love comedy. Like, man, I love the way his brain works and the way that he makes you think. And there's just something about that I want to be a part of, but I had no idea. It didn't dawn on me to stand up at all.
Wow.
Did you have to, when you moved out to LA, did you find that you had a harder time connecting with the audiences out there? Because I know just with some comedians that I've talked to that have toured around, they go around the country, I've found that ones that are from like the New York, New Jersey area have a little bit of a tougher time because like we're brutal out here. Like, I mean, go to an open mic in Jersey City. Like if your stuff is not like on point, making people laugh, like people have no problem like yelling at you, get off the stage.
Oh yeah. It's like the Apollo.
Yeah. Whereas like a place in California, like they're a little bit more reserved. They're a little bit more like the manners are there. Like they're not going to yell at you like that, you know?
Yeah. Well, luckily for me is I actually started in LA, so I didn't have anything to compare it to. Like, I know New York is tough and I've performed there numerous times. And I love it. It is a different type of vibe for sure. But LA, like, there is something more forgiving about LA, and I think it's mainly because everyone lives in fantasy land out here. Like it's just there's a fakeness and they can be mean in their own way. Like they're not going to yell at you necessarily, but they think they're too good to laugh at you for sure. But because everyone's a celebrity out here. Everyone thinks they're famous. Everyone possibly is famous. So it's always this air of like, impress me. But yeah, no, I didn't. That's the one thing is people always ask me, how did you get into LA? Like, isn't it so competitive from where you can? I was like, I never had. So I just had to be good from jump. Like I had nothing. I was like, oh, I just better be funny quick so I can stand out and, you know, get up places.
When you first started, and sorry, Ellie, I will get there. When you first started, were you more like personal humor, or did you take like about yourself, or did you take situations you were in that you saw in LA and make jokes about it? How did you go about your first jokes, and how did you evolve into the stuff you did now?
Yeah, I've actually always been a more observational comedian, even to this day. Like even when I started, I was more like of a Seinfeld, like, well, what about like, and, you know, just picking things that I noticed that I thought were bizarre. And I still do that. That's just my style. I talk about personal things sometimes, like about my race and like my upbringing, and because, you know, I'm Black, but I look, you know, very ambiguous. And so that's left a huge, like, you know, impression on me, by the way, you know, just from people, the way people have treated me. You know, just that, I mean, that's really how I got funny, is because I always felt like I didn't fit in places, because it was either, you know what America is. You're either, people put you in boxes, and if you don't fit in those boxes, you're just, you know, you're just homeless. And
Preach.
so that was me my whole entire life. So I always felt insecure. And so a defense mechanism for me was just to make things funny. But I'll talk about race stuff personally. But again, I would say 90% of my material is more observational and like social commentary.
Cool. Ellie, go on if you have anything.
Lots of things, first of all. I can relate to you. Very similar situation. I was watching one of your sets, and when your part where you're talking about when you combine the two most oppressed races, you come out looking white. I felt that in my non-existent ginger soul. I was like, oh my God, that's it. That's literally me. Like, and that had me, I like cracked, my neighbors probably heard me laughing, because it's just like, oh, thank fuck, someone knows what it's like, you know? Because again, when people can't put you in a box, that bothers them, and they want to compartmentalize you, and it's like, no. And then I was like, well, for me, because my dad's Jewish, it's like, well, man, let's make that 3 oppressed groups, you know? Right. So I was just, I felt like that shit hit me really hard, and I thought that was gold. But yeah, so it's cool to see, I guess for me, someone like me, 1, being successful, and 2, like someone that has like those experiences where, you know, it's people are kind of like, what are you? Which, you know, I get all the time. I'm sure you did too. And it's like the most dehumanizing thing ever. And it's like, would you go up to a white guy and be like, what are you? No.
Right.
No. And like, so it got to the point like, okay, well, maybe he does. Eric does. But it got to the point where in college, like this guy asked me, he's like, what are you? And I was like, a fucking human. And I just walked away, because I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. Like, no, forget you guys. So yeah, and I'm sure you probably still get that to this day. What are you? And it's just like, does it?
Of course. And it's worse now, I feel like. Now with all the identity politics, and now it's like everyone's taking so much pride in what they are, and like it's their whole identity, where it's like, it was an issue before in Hollywood, like with casting, for me, because, you know, they already had their predetermined stereotypes of how Black people should talk and act and behave, and these are the roles that are for Black people, and you don't fit that. And now it's like, in this woke age, we were supposed to get better, but it's like, I feel like it's worse. Like, not only are like casting people telling me that I'm not Black enough, but I've got like these woke white liberals telling me just in life I'm not Black enough. Like, you're not oppressed enough. You're not this and this and this. And I'm like, I had a white woman on Twitter tell me to check my privilege.
Yeah. So
that's uncomfortable.
Did you smack the shit out of her through Twitter? Like, I hope
through Twitter, I did one of those. Yeah.
I'd be like, what's your address?
Right.
Message me your address.
Yeah.
Because of how much everything pivoted, do you feel like now before people went from like, what are you? Do you feel like now it's kind of like, well, what are you? Like, they're trying to like be woke. Like, tell me, like, what's it like? What are you? Like, do you feel like you get that more now?
Well, yes, it's like like because there's an oppression Olympics that's happening right now, so they don't know how to feel about me or how to treat me until they know where I am in the hierarchy. Like I can be
they don't know how bad they should feel.
enough. Yeah, it's so sad and crazy.
I wanted to touch on that too because I do have like part I wanted to touch on because the reason we did start interacting on Twitter was because of the whole I want to say Aunt Jemima thing you tweeted about where you tweeted like wait they canceled Aunt Jemima and there's still racist stuff going on
I can't believe it.
Right, and you like tweeted back, man. I even said I was like, listen, as a white person from the outside looking in, all I could see is this. And you mentioned that you used to be on one side and you kind of did like a 180 and now you're fighting older white women about how black you are. And like, how do you deal with that? And what made you switch, if you don't mind talking about that?
Yeah, no, I don't mind it at all. I think more people need to start talking about it, especially as comedians. Like, I don't know when, like, artists started biting their tongues, like, and why. We were the ones that were supposed to be outspoken about, these things. And it just shifted completely. And it's just a shame because there are people that I respect or used to respect, I should say, that I'm just like as comedy peers, and I'm just like, why are you so closed-minded and just not open to even having conversations about these things? But yeah, I used to be on the left. I used to be on not like hardcore left, but because I've always been somewhat a little bit conservative with my values and views. But I it was identity politics. I was like, oh, I'm black, so I can't be over there because they're the ones that they're the racist ones. And I don't blame 100%. I don't blame all the liberals for the way that they think. I mean, I blame them in that they need to start searching other places for their information because you have complete control over that. But if you're a person that watches mainstream media all the time and you keep hearing this narrative of how evil one side is and that's all you hear, that's what you believe. And that's where I was. And I knew, I mean, I'm a huge conspiracy person. Like I've gone down all the rabbit holes. I don't believe a lot of them, but I do believe a lot of them. And I have always known that mainstream media manipulates. I did know that, but even knowing that, I still got lost in that whole, this is what I'm black, I need to believe this, I need to vote for this person, I need to be, this, or I'm a sellout, I'm a coon. And I woke up during the pandemic, which is I was hoping most people would have woken up during the pandemic because you had time to be at home and do some actual research. But a lot of people are still asleep.
What did it though? Because the pandemic's only been a year. Was it like a tweet someone sent you? Did you watch something on a media network and like fuck this? Like I'm out.
Yeah, no, I went on YouTube. So I have a friend who we've always talked about conspiracy theories together, but there were certain conspiracies that she was aware of that she never mentioned to me. And because she was like, I didn't think you were ready. And I'm like, I'm always I'm always ready. Okay. And so I called her over to my house and we had this thing called Conspiracy Thursday where we would just go on YouTube. And this was before all the censorship started happening. This was right before they started pulling down conservative views from YouTube and other social platforms. And so we would just start going down all these rabbit holes. And there was one particular video that made me just be like, oh, snap. And it was the Trump video where, you remember how when the Charlottesville, when it was he was saying there are good people on both sides. Right. Yeah. And I saw the full length of the video on YouTube where he says specifically, I'm not talking about the neo-Nazis. Right. I'm talking about, the good people on that side that just want to protect the statues for whatever, for history purposes or whatever. And I saw that video and I was like, I knew the media manipulates and I knew they're capable of, of putting out information like that to skew it towards their narrative. But in that moment, I was like, I wonder what else have they manipulated that Trump has said? And I was like, oh, and then I just started going and I saw more and more and more. And I was like, not that I'm not a Trump supporter either. I'm just a person. I'm in the middle. Like I'm just like, I don't trust either one of these sides. I know what's really going on, that they pit us against one another so that we don't fight the real enemy, which is, the elites,
Them.
working class.
Yeah.
And that's
Them.
You know what these people should start doing, and like everybody should do this. Just for your speeches, create an OnlyFans account. Don't let anyone have it for free, because then they can't manipulate it.
That's true.
Everyone's got to pay for it if you want to see
Oh,
it.
yeah.
So are you talking to me, Brian? I should create one?
No, not
Definitely.
you. Nobody wants to know what you're saying.
No one cares what you have to say.
No, but
Yeah, no,
Candace,
that's actually a great idea.
I have to say that too, because we after the George Floyd death back in May, and I've talked about this before, we had on someone from LA who we were mutual friends with, a black guy who went to the marches, the protests, and we had a great conversation about it. I've been transparent. 4 years ago, I voted for Trump. We have people on the network. I have friends who hate his guts, but we get along. Like it's nothing crazy. And we had a great conversation about everything, the Black Lives Matter movement. He posts on Instagram. We're actually friends with him to this day, so he won't mind I'm saying this. He posts on Instagram, go check out this heavy right-wing podcast. And I text him, I go, how am I heavy right-wing? What did I do? And it was just wild. Like you said, like, I was like, I thought after the conversation we had, like, I'm kind of in the middle here, but it's like you said, one side, the other side, and
Yeah.
it's a wild time.
You can't question something without someone being like, oh, you're alt-right. And I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, you're an anti-masker. Like, no, I just question things. I have critical thinking skills, and I don't see something and then just take it in and then just believe it. I have a brain, and I trust my gut more than I trust anything else. I trust my gut more than I trust the government, of course, and anything that anyone says to me, including scientists that just because you have a degree or a master's or a doctorate doesn't mean you know more than I do. It means you went to school longer than I did.
Yeah.
You're good at memorizing things, as Brian said on the one episode.
No, you know what? The sugar industry paid off the FDA to say that fats were the reason that people were getting all sorts of diseases and things.
Yeah.
And they admitted that. Then that's been going on for 80 years. And then it finally comes out that, sugar, it's not high, it's not saturated fat and unsaturated fat. Now it's sugar. Oh, that's the problem.
Yeah. There's always an agenda, and if you don't realize that by now, if you don't question why they put fluoride in our water, like, what are we talking about? Like, that's not a thing. That's not a thing that should be in our water. It's poison, and they say it's for our teeth. What are you talking? You care about our teeth? No, you don't.
That's why I buy.
You're going with? Okay.
That's why I buy Brita filters. That
doesn't get the fluoride out. Just FYI, the only way to get fluoride out is through distillation or having reverse osmosis water.
Well, you know what? This changes my life. I was super positive about this. Now I'm like,
you ruined it. You crashed his world.
He brushes his teeth 5 times a day because he uses Brita. Do you think that? Do you think that like comedy, like the pendulum's going to swing backwards because it started getting more woke, where some of them weren't even being funny. They were just kind of just saying, well, Trump's an asshole. And everyone's like, yeah. But now, like after Dave Chappelle stand-ups and Bill Burr and SNL, like they pretty much just like shoved everybody's face in it. It was like, look at this. And people, like that's a good thing. Like Twitter sucks for whatever. I don't have it. But like it shows all sides too. So people are saying, yes, this is what we want. This is the comedy. You don't have to like it, but we need this. Do you think it's slowly, those are going to kind of spark it to swing back?
I think it's gonna have to. Otherwise, comedy is just gonna die. I mean, it's been dying. And I don't know who's to blame. I know I talked to some comics the other night and they were like, I blame Hannah Gatsby for that Nanette special. That's when it all started going. And I was like, no, I mean, that was already going downhill at that point. Mm-hmm. But I think that I know enough comics that are fed up that we just need to create our own spaces that are purposely meant to be subversive and to get people back to what comedy used to be. It's just we need to take the initiative ourselves. And I know enough people that we could definitely do it, but we just have to actually do it.
Right. And Jim Norton talks about, I don't know if you know Jim Norton, he's on the, so Jim and Sam, they do XM show every morning, and Norton has talked about that. I hate to bring him up because like you're our guest, but he talked about that, and he said like George Carlin today, the 7 things you can't say, like you'd have such a problem with a skit like that today. He'd just be canceled. But I want to ask too, what comedians did you look up to that you went back and researched as you were doing comedies? Sorry to go back to the comedy aspect because
no, it's fine, whatever. We can talk about whatever. I mean, Chappelle is my top. Like, he's just the funniest person to me. He's a comedic genius. But I, grew up watching Sinbad. I loved Carlin too. Carlin never made me like hilariously laugh, but it was his honesty. Yeah. It was his, I don't care if this hurts your feelings. This is what it is. I'm just going to say it. And, back in the day, it used to be a safer place to do that was the stage. But comedy and truth go hand in hand. That's what makes comedy comedy, is it comes from a place of truth. And even the audiences know when a joke is not coming from a place of truth. They can tell, and that there's a reason for that. Why that premise was flimsy is because there was no truth in it. And so Carlin, absolutely because of that. Who else did I loved Seinfeld, like the show. His stand-up wasn't like my favorite coming up, but I still religiously, I watch his show before I go to bed at night. So that sense of humor, that cerebral, observational, just silly type of comedy, he was definitely a top for me. And Chris Rock, of course, Chris Rock.
Yes.
Yeah.
Cool.
Chris Rock.
Yeah.
Go on, Brian.
Okay, I'm interjecting. No, I'm interjecting. Y'all been talking enough. Anyways, you have. So, Candice, I just want to touch back on the Aunt Jemima thing. I'm not sure what you said about it, but from my perspective, my point of view, it's just kind of like the black square thing. It's like, that's not actually, you're looking like you're doing something without actually doing something. Like, that's not actually helping racial equity, like removing Aunt Jemima or posting a black square does not help or promote racial equity. It's just, I'm going to look like I care because this is the in thing right now. And it's like, no, you need to actually, how about we look at zoning, and zoning is totally embedded in racism. Like, why don't we reevaluate zoning and school districts and, why there's certain neighborhoods and why these certain neighborhoods are the way that they are. And why don't we take a deep dive into that and look at how, I'm sure, this era is called the new Jim Crow era, how, granted, there's no more slavery, but mass incarceration is just another form of slavery at this point. Right. So it's all the colored, it's like, oh, coloreds, in you go, right. So it's like, fuck your little black square. Like, I posted it, but I'm black, so it's like, it's meant a little bit more to me, again, when it's like the protests and whatnot. And it's like, how I've tried to explain it to people that are, again, don't understand it. And it's like, it's not saying black people are more important or your life doesn't matter. It's like, imagine every day, I'm sure you go through this too, every day thinking my cousin, my aunt, my uncle, my dad, my brother, my mom can get shot for going about their daily business just because of the color of their skin. That stress weighs on you, because people, I always, every now and then you hear people be like, I'm tired of hearing about Black Lives Matter. It's like, I'm tired about worrying about my cousins and family members getting shot when they're going to their car. So imagine living with that. And then it's like black square. And it's like, for fuck's sake. Yeah.
Right. So. Yeah, no, it doesn't help. Again, it's just it's all virtue signaling, and there's a laziness into, if you compare activists today with activists back during civil rights, you can't compare. Posting a square or whatever is not activism. It's
how many petitions have you signed? Oh, I didn't know that there was a petition to sign. It's like, you literally can sign them in 5 seconds. Or, that young man that was murdered by cops in Aurora, Colorado. There's this whole postcard writing campaign, and I've put in $20 and sent a bunch of postcards to the governor of Colorado. Hey, you need to handle this. It's simple things you can do instead of just again, ooh, black square. Or, I'm going to just write BLM on my face. And it's like, oh.
Yeah, no, people just don't, they just go with, it's unfortunate. They just do what everyone else.
It's a trend. It's on trend. It's on.
People want to seem like they care. It's like when there's a tragedy and then they're like, let me go post on Facebook, thoughts and prayers. Like, could you do less?
Yeah.
Right. And
Especially now with like nobody really has a personal life for the past year. No one's going out. No one's doing anything. You're not at the club. You're not saying, look at my new outfit, me and all my friends at the bar. And it's just like, I need something to stay on social media. I'm not funny. I don't have a personality. So,
Right.
Hey, look at this black square doing all these things. I mean, that's what it kind of seems like. Look at me. Pretty much it's like, have you thought about me today?
absolutely.
That's really what it
Also,
seems like.
we can't overlook the main reason why anyone does anything on social media, which is for attention. I need to post something today. I need to get likes. It's like a drug, and it's sad. And everybody wants to be famous. Everybody wants to, just matter. And like, you can matter, but have you thought about what the things you should matter for? Like, what's your own opinion? Do some research, read a book. Like, it's just so sad what's happening.
Are we just gonna speed by how Eric did great poses for 3 separate Instagram takes?
Do them again.
It was 2.
Do it again.
Phenomenal poses. It's like
I was in Queens and I was feeling my sweatshirt and somebody said, "Oh, do you want me to take?" And we walked by a mirror. You want me to take a picture? I said, "No."
Oh,
And
I saw that. I saw
just
your
like
photo.
kidding around, and it was just like I looked at my phone. I had like 80, and we were just laughing. So I posted it because I needed a like.
But
I get it.
what you said, Candice and Ellie too, that's what always bothers me and it's gonna sound so weird, but like it makes sense to me. It bothers me as a white dude when I see other white dudes trying to be a part of it when I know they're not even genuine about it. Like, it's so annoying. Like, I have people like I have people who texted other people I know who were like, black people were like, how come you didn't text me how I felt right now during this whole thing? And I'm like,
Yeah.
I ain't going through my Rolodex of every worker I know. How are you feeling? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, you're an adult. Like, I would assume you're right. And like you said, the NBA, the MLS, any of these things, listen, they have a platform. I'm all for them doing their thing. But when you my thing is the MLS wore for the tournament in Orlando, Black Lives Matter shirts. I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
But what happens when the season actually starts this year?
Yeah, what are you,
don't have the
what are you
shirts
actually
on.
doing now?
You don't have the shirts on.
Right.
So like,
What
why
are you
don't
actually doing?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Why don't you continue it? Why just for 3 months they matter? Like, and that shit bothers me. It's like the virtue signaling that pisses me off so fucking much.
It's all what's trendy and what's
It's
cool.
trendy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
That bothers me as me. I can't imagine.
Money,
Yeah.
basically, especially with like the sports things like that. It's like, what's going to get people to still continue to put money into my business?
Yeah.
Oh, we got to slap the Black Lives Matter thing on. Yeah. Paint it on the street, put it on the walls, give them shirts, whatever. As long as they pay us for it.
Yeah, but and that's where Black people, we need to stop just accepting any old form of,
We care. The pseudo
Right.
we care.
And because we need to see that, like, that's not progress. Like, I talk about this all the time, but like, we can say that's not enough, but we need to stop accepting it.
Right.
Like, I'm like, there's no reason why. I'm sorry to get back to like presidents and Biden.
this is fine.
Like,
It's
all
fine.
political shit. That's too political. But there's no reason why Black people should have voted for Biden. Like, there's, and I know that sounds like identity politics, but they're using that same. They're saying that Trump is racist. Biden has had so many. He endorsed Robert Byrd, who was a former Klansman, and he has just as he wrote the crime bill. So it's like you kind of hold people to the same standards, right? So you can't say Trump is racist, but then say Biden is not, when arguably he's actually done worse for Black people than Trump has.
Yeah.
So it's just like we shouldn't accept. We shouldn't have accepted any part of Biden. If we're going to say we're not voting for Trump because he's racist, but then we have to look at the same issues on this side. So we have to stand up for ourselves, and we have to stop accepting these little handouts like, oh, that's going to make stuff better. Like, no, but taking a knee has done nothing. Like, we're applauding now because now all the athletes are taking a knee, but what has that done?
Yeah.
That's not a solution to anything. Ask me, that's the same as Aunt Jemima being gone. It's the same shit.
Well, Biden did say if you don't vote for Biden, you ain't black. So
He did.
he said that.
He did, and black people were like, you know what? He's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wake up.
I can't
Can I
touch on
say-
it, obviously, because I'm not black, but like it sounds like you make points. Ellie, go on.
No, so I don't know. I don't know. I feel like finally black people are kind of waking up to that, Candace. Like if I'll like, prowl Twitter and people are like, once again, and this is not a slight to like white people, but we let our movements get hijacked by outsiders. Like BLM has 1,000% been taken over by white folks. It is now a white cause.
Absolutely.
I'm sure some white lady's gonna come
Not
after
even
me
a
and tell me I'm not
white
black.
cause. It's a white hobby. It's a white hobby. I swear, it's a white hobby. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
I mean,
been taken over by whites.
right. And I don't, of course, Black Lives Matter as a statement.
Right.
Right. But the organization, I've never really fully trusted. I've never.
No, where's the money going? Where's the money going? Like, I will not directly fund a BLM. Like, yeah, I've got BLM like hats and stuff, but if they were made by like a small, like sewer in my neighborhood or whatever, like I didn't go on BLM's website and order from them because it's like, I've yet to see like a budget produced. Like, okay, are you funding like underprivileged schools or like, are you going into South Central LA or Chicago or Detroit and giving those kids, getting those kids new textbooks, like getting those kids tutoring programs, or where is that money going? Like, have you seen a bill like of where this money's allegedly going?
Exactly. And I always go back to what has been done.
Right.
What did they accomplish? And
Black Square.
Yeah, Black Square. And it's just, it's suspicious. I mean, we see these movements every time there's an election.
Right.
And it's like, you can't tell me that that's not an agenda. You can't tell me that that's not to get people to be a distraction or to get, people of color and minorities more, angry so that they know to vote Democrat, when I'm like, that's not what, that's what they want you to do. But yeah, that doesn't mean it's right.
The worst part too with the white people hijacking it, it's usually like younger white women who are like rich and daughters of dentists and doctors who know one black person. Like they don't even like interact with minorities, and they're out there protesting. Like I'll laugh at something Chappelle says that's like a black or white joke, and they'll look at me like, you're a racist. You don't even know a black person. Shut the fuck up. Like, it's just it's infuriating. So I'm with Ellie on that.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, if I can interject too. So I was at that big one in LA before shit went south and before, those assholes hijacked it. So like, and what I will keep preaching this till the day I die, as someone that was there was the peaceful protest, and then there were just the people there to fuck shit up. And you could tell it was about like 3:00, like people that had been at the protest all day, like my friends and I were, and a bunch of other people, everyone that we like walked from that park with all the way down to wherever we were. I'm not too familiar with LA, sorry. Started dipping back, either going home or going to the park. And then you could see like shit getting bad and like, cops setting up like stations and whatnot. And it's just like, these people were not a part of this. Like, again, everyone either went back to the park or went home. And you could just see like this mass exodus of like the people there that are actually there for the cause. And while we were there, guess who's spray painting a freaking mail truck? This little white boy with his purse.
Of course.
It's like, and literally, me and like a bunch of other people were like, what are you doing?
It was a satchel.
Like, it was you're right, excuse me, his satchel, his saddlebag. And we're like, what are you, like, we were all like, stop it, what are you doing? Like, that's not, like, oh cool, you spray painted a cab on a freaking mail truck. Guess whose taxes are going to go to repaint that? Mine. Fuck you. And then the same thing, this little white girl, again, then like spray painted like fuck 12 on the side of a building. And it's like, did any colored in this crowd ask her to do this? Oh, no? Okay, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Speaking of fuck 12 real quick, on CNN there was a reporter, and they go, one of the protesters is clearly upset about the new curfew, and the guy's like, fuck 12, fuck 12. And I was like, that is not what he's saying.
Candice, I haven't heard you touch on this in any of your comedy. I know like you're in touch with your black side and whatnot, but like the Native American side, like do you delve into that the heritage aspect of it?
Which tribe?
Right, like
how? You don't mind me asking, which tribe?
This is how out of touch I am with my Native American side, because I'm black and Native American and white on both sides of my family.
Okay.
So,
well, there's the black natives too, which you probably know all about.
No, I don't. But I really
I'll
don't know.
educate you. I'll educate you because I did some learning myself.
Well, I blame my parents because I asked my parents like my whole entire life. So what like Native American are we? And they're like, well, Cherokee, Seminole, and they think Shinnecock. But that's the extent of our conversations. Like they've never like been like, hey, let's explore, let's go to this museum, let's go take a road trip. They never did any of that for me. And there's no like Native Americans left. So there was like not like there was a community of Native Americans in Cincinnati that I could have like gone into. So
I got you.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't really know anything about the Native American side of my family.
It's funny you mentioned that. So my grandfather, again, Black Native, grew up on a Cherokee reservation with his 7 brothers and sisters. And so if you want to get in touch with your Cherokee side, because it's been my dream to like go back down to Tulsa, Oklahoma, which is where they went, Trail of Tears, let's send them to fucking Oklahoma. That's how they ended up. No, seriously.
She's like, I'm serious.
Yeah, I'm serious, because like the Cherokee were in like the southeast, and then they're like, hey, indigenous fuckers, get your shit and get out. Go to Oklahoma. Yeah. And then, so like that shit was like when my great grandfather went to go to town for water, it was whites, coloreds, and then the horse trough was for the natives. It's like, damn, we can't even get the colored water. Like we're colored.
So, animal water.
Yeah, pretty much. You get the animal water. So, like that shit is real and whatnot. But so yeah, if you want to go take a trip down to Tulsa, Oklahoma, let me know, because that's been on my to-do list of things to do.
I do. I feel guilty because I've never really explored into that side. But yeah, I need to for sure.
I also love how Candice started this conversation by saying, my parents are the best, they support me. And then when we ask about her Cherokee side, she goes, I blame my parents.
They're one fault.
Yeah.
They're one fault.
Those are parents right under the
their one flaw.
You said you grew up in Queens. Were your parents from like the Northeast? Because like the Trail of Tears and all that, like I've been to the Southwest and everything. That seems like that's the most concentrated area of Native Americans. So like how did they end up in Queens? Like was it generations in New York or?
Well, yeah. Well, my dad is from Bed-Stuy. He's the one that's from Brooklyn, and my mom is from Virginia. She grew up in a small town called Dinwiddie in Petersburg, Virginia. So yeah, then she moved to New York when she was 19. She's like the only one on my mom's side of the family like that got out of that little town in Virginia. So she saw sights on New York, went there, met my dad, and that's history. But yeah.
Candice, I know we're keeping you. I'm sorry about this, but I want to touch on your Netflix show, David Spade you work with, right?
Yeah.
So how did you get into that? How did you get that job?
Well, we had a show on Comedy Central called Lights Out. That's what we were originally working on, and then enter the pandemic, and the show gets canceled. And so we were
that show.
Yeah, Lights Out with David Spade.
I wanted to watch that. It looked really good.
Yeah, it was so fun. It was a thing where it was just like we were the only like late night comedy show that was not political and wasn't bashing Trump and just getting back to jokes, not worrying about like political correctness and just comics doing what they do. And so it was like a panel show. Spade was hosting, and he had 3 comics on the panel, and we just talked about pop culture topics, just have fun. We had sketches, field pieces, and things like that. And so yeah, so that was a bummer when we found out that got canceled. But we all still had, like, I think everyone felt like we weren't going to go away, like 100%. We all had faith and hope that another network would pick us up after things opened up a little bit. And then we found out, like, August of last year that Netflix bought it. And what's interesting is that we knew the show was going to have to change a little bit in the format of it, but we weren't sure how. And then we found out from the showrunners, like, it's basically going to be a talk show for shows that are on the Netflix platform. So it would be Spade and 2 co-hosts, Fortune Feimster and London Hughes, who's from the UK. And they would just interview guests that were cast members from those shows. But then, like, the more and more that we worked on it, like, we kept getting notes, like, from the network. So every week it was a different show that we were doing on the after party show. And now it's basically turned into like an Entertainment Tonight show. Like, for some reason, and it's not bad. It's just a completely different show than Lights Out. And that's not what we all like thought or envisioned when we first found out Netflix picked it up, but it's a work in progress. We are like just now figuring out what the show is, and we've already done, I think, 4 or 5 episodes. So,
That's
it's still mostly the same crew, most of the same writers, which was great because they're like family, but it's, it's basically just like now it's like just, hey, we have a host, and it's not even necessarily going to be Spade every time now. They're like going to rotate hosts and just have guests on. So, yeah, it's fun.
That's
I'm
cool.
just happy you're working.
I want to ask too, because we've interviewed rappers, battlers that we grew up watching, and it was kind of being like, oh my god, like you get starstruck until you talk to a few of them. You're like, these are just people. So like, were you ever in that position where you were like met someone you were just like, holy shit?
Yeah, like David Spade.
Someone
besides this podcast.
Or no,
Yes,
it's besides us.
obviously, besides you guys. Yeah, no, I talk about this too, like on my podcast. Like, I'm not a fan. Like, I'm not a fan of anything really. I mean, like, I have like the comics that I really love, but even then, I'm like, I'm not a fan. Like, what is a fan? Like, I'm not gonna go buy your merch. I'll watch it if like your special if it comes on my television, but I'm not gonna like go to a concert. I'm not gonna pay money. I just don't. For some reason, like the celebrity culture has always grossed me out a bit. And it's interesting just because I am in entertainment, but I also am not like trying to be a celebrity. I just want to do what I love and, make a comfortable living. But I hate social media. I hate all that. I don't like the worshiping. The only person, I was starstruck when I met Chappelle when I was like in my 20s, and I was just like, oh my God, this is like my comedic idol. And now it's like, oh, there's Dave. Like, it's not that big of a deal anymore. But like, meeting Spade was cool, but I wasn't like, oh my God, it's David Spade. The only person I could say that I would ever do that with is probably Mariah Carey. Like, she's the only person. Yeah.
All people.
Grew up listening to her. She was one person. She looked like me. I was like, oh my God, somebody that looks like me. And she that's how I taught myself how to sing, was listening to Mariah Carey albums. So like, she's
Can
really
you hit that high C?
Can I hit a high C?
Didn't you hear her
Mariah Carey high C
impression?
No, I mean, no, probably not. I would have to hear it first and let you know if I can imitate it, but no, probably not. I can't do that whistle octave that she can do.
I just have to say, "Always Be My Baby" by Mariah Carey is one of the best songs of the '90s. I'm just throwing that out there. That
He
song,
has much better songs, but
that
okay.
song's bang. That song just is a banger. "Always Be My Baby."
He has much better
Adorable.
songs, but
It's her best song
Okay.
of all time, Ellie. That's the best song of all time.
I will literally fight you, but okay.
Okay, fine. Candice, we have a final segment we do here. It's called Gun to Your Head segment, right? It's not literal, so don't worry about it. So it's
It might be.
I wanted
It's a knock at the door.
exciting that happened to me today.
Yeah. Not even where Eric shows up. What's up?
So we ask 2 questions each, and they're kind of like wordplay involved. It's not your typical like root beer or Coke type thing. Since we started as a hip hop podcast, we do like some wordplay and whatnot. And we
You
ask
do
2
wordplay.
We all do wordplay, and we ask 2 questions each, and you have to answer them, and you pick your favorite question at the end. We keep a running tally. It's pretty intense, okay?
So you're just going to ask me questions and I just have to answer them?
Yes, and at the end, you have to pick your favorite question.
Okay.
Okay, you ready for this? I'm nervous. Since Eric cheats all the time and writes them down while the guest is on, we're going to give it to Eric to go first. Go.
Okay. All right. Would you rather get booed every time you're on stage or live in a haunted house?
Oh, man. How haunted is it? Can I ask that?
Every time, the whole time you're in the house, you hear boo.
That's it, though? They're not like, it's not like Paranormal Activity where they're throwing shit around?
I'm not trying to hurt you, but think about how annoying it would be in your house. Like, I'm sitting here right now and I hear boo.
A haunted house for sure.
Okay.
That wouldn't crush my soul. I would still be able to do stand, and I'd actually probably get a lot of material from the ghost. So yeah,
You would. Okay. Would you rather cancel your Netflix account or get flicked every time you hop on the net?
Get flipped.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah. Netflix, flick,
Wordplay.
net, internet.
Well, I can't cancel my Netflix account because I work for them right now.
Yeah.
Boom.
I need to watch the content for the show. So I guess I get flicked. That
You
would be
get flicked
fun.
every time you hop on the net. Okay, that's a great
It's
question.
clear Eric and I aren't comedians because these are kind of corny. So I will go next with this one. Okay? And we could agree that Eric's are subpar. So we will.
First one was good.
Since you were in New York for a little, I will go with gun to your head, New York style pizza or the LA weather.
That's not funny.
Well,
Shut it.
this is going to shatter everyone's dreams, but I'm vegan. So the LA weather I'm going to have to go with.
Well, I wouldn't have guessed that. Okay,
Eat
all right.
that, Scott.
For 1 year, you could only wear pink, you could only listen to pink, or you could only eat pink Starburst. What would you pick?
She's wearing pink.
As I say, I'm wearing it. I'd probably just wear it because there's no way I could listen to Pink for a year. I mean, maybe the Wigger album. You guys remember her first album?
Yes.
Yeah.
Most girls want men with the bling bling. Just want. I don't need to say.
Wow, you really know that. Wow, okay.
If she had a pocket full of pink Starburst, I'd say this was all staged.
I should go with it.
Corroborated. You guys talked about this.
All right, Brian, you're up.
God, those were like the worst two you've ever said.
Don't try to get in her head. She might like him and pick me as the winner because she feels.
You always say that shit though. No
I
hyping
didn't think
yourself
Eric's
up.
were bad. Just
Brian,
saying.
hey, Brian, why don't you go? Stop
Man,
judging.
no problem. All right. Would you rather have to wear wet socks or wet your pants on stage?
Just for the one time?
One time.
Oh, I go with the wet socks.
Yeah, who would want to go on, Brian?
Wet socks are pretty
They
uncomfortable.
welcome her to the stage.
It's terrible.
Yeah, no,
I
it's
had
gross,
wet
but
socks.
at least
It's
nobody would see it.
disgusting.
It's true.
Right.
And I pee strong, okay? So like everybody would know. Everybody would see what was happening. There's no way I'd be discreet about it. Could I wear a diaper? That would change the game.
No.
Yeah,
It's
no,
not-
stop.
Oh, you just got to let it go.
Yeah,
Sounds
well,
like.
Okay. Would you rather be born missing your big toes or have a foot fetish and have your family and friends know?
Foot fetish. You can't. Yeah, you can't balance without your big toes.
No, you need
It's
your
true.
Being athletic.
pinky toe.
No, you need both. You need both your pinky and your big.
Not big toes, pinky.
I would say
You
after
don't know
Brian crushed mine, not exactly a fine follow-up, if you ask me.
This was not our best, but
Ellie, you gotta.
Okay, so would you rather have to sing your answer every time someone asks you a question, or would you rather have a bird singing in your ear every day? And not like a nice bird. No, yeah, a nice bird, like a nightingale. We'll make it a nice bird. I was gonna make it like a nasty one, like some type of gull.
Oh, like the ones that wake me up every morning.
Yeah, right. The ones that scream outside your window. We'll make it like a nightingale or a dove.
Yeah, that sounds exhausting. Me having to sing all the time. But I do love to sing. I do love singing, but that would be a lot of pressure all the time. I'm gonna go with the bird as long as he's a pleasant bird.
Small, pleasant bird.
So not like a wild turkey. Okay, fair enough. Okay. And then this one is just totally random. Just pick one. Bear or octopus? Don't think, just pick.
Bear.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you, Candice. Your favorite question?
Don't mock me.
I don't think any of us are that good, honestly.
we're not worthy.
dare
We're not
you.
worthy of a win, but you got to do it.
I'm gonna have to say the pink question.
What a win! That is what a win. You know what?
Damn it, you can't pick him.
Anytime I get to say the word wigger, I get very excited. And so, it's a word we're not supposed to say anymore, but I talk about this all the time, is they haven't replaced it with a better, more politically correct word. So what are we supposed to say?
What's wrong with wigger?
You know what?
I say African American.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah.
You know what? Let's just focus on the fact that was a clutch win by me. It was a well-designed question.
Well, first off, that was your first win in what, like 25 episodes?
I don't know. We space them out so we never know the dates of them. So in your face, Brian. Regardless, you got to know your audience sometimes. You see her wearing pink. It's like, let's court, maybe I could get a question. But regardless, huge W for the host of the show, TruExact. Awesome W. Candice, before we let you go, let us know where we can catch you. Give us your handle on IG that I hope you don't check your messages because it's embarrassing.
Check them.
I'm going to now.
And Twitter.
Yes.
Where can we catch you at?
Yeah, you can find me on social media, Jokes by Candice, and that's Candice with an ICE, not an ACE.
Oh, sorry about that. I apologize.
There you
Everyone
go.
nuts for it.
Read the room.
Candice, this was really cool. It was a cool, different perspective from, hate to say it, a female comedian. Like, we don't have a lot on, so it was really cool to get your perspective on stuff. Awesome, by the way. Really funny. If you're ever on the East Coast touring, I know Ellie's out in California, so she's near you, but if you're ever on the East Coast and
I'll be stalking you tonight. I'll be outside your window.
Jersey or New York, let us know. Message us. We'll come see you out here.
Great. Thanks, guys.